Most people believe the critical voice in their head is just who they are. They think it's their personality, their standards, or their consciousness. But the inner critic is not born inside you, it is learned. In this episode, I want to explore how the inner critic develops, why it often sounds authoritative and convincing, and why trying to silence it rarely works. Hi, my name is Antonio. I have master degree in psychotherapy. I am also facilitator of systemic constellations, and for over 13 years, I work with people through individual sessions and workshops. The inner critic forms in relationship. Early in life, the nervous system learns what keeps connection stable and what threatens it. When correction, disappointment, comparison, or emotional withdrawal are repeated enough times, the body begins to anticipate them. Over time, that anticipation turns inward. The voice that once came from the outside becomes internal. What once said by someone else becomes something you say to yourself, not because you enjoy self criticism, but because your system learned that monitoring yourself reduces risk. The inner critic is a protective structure. It tries to prevent exposure, rejection, failure, or shame. It believes that if it corrects you first, no one else will have to. It believes that if it pushes you hard enough, you will finally be safe. This is why inner critic often feels relentless. It does not attack for pleasure, it attacks to protect. But the protection comes at a cost. It creates tension, self doubt, and constant internal pressure. Many people try to fight their inner critic. They argue with it, they replace it with positive affirmations, they attempt to suppress it, but conflict rarely dissolves it because the critic is not an enemy, it is an adaptation. The real shift happens when you begin to ask a different question. Not how do I get rid of this voice, but whose voice does this sound like? Often the tone, the language, and the expectations are not originally yours. They echo relational environments where performance, perfection, or competence were linked to acceptance. Over time, the critic becomes fused with identity. You stop hearing it as a voice and start experiencing it as a truth. I'm not good enough. I should be better. I am behind. These statements feels factual because they were repeated in environments where they shape belonging. The body responds to the critic as if it were external. Heart rate shifts, breath tightens, attention narrows. The nervous system prepares for evaluation. Even when no one else is present, the internalized gaze remains active. Healing the inner critic is not about eliminating standards or ambition. It's about separating protection from punishment. It is about recognizing that the voice was learned in order to maintain connection, not to define identity. When the critic is understood rather than attacked, something softens. You begin to hear it as history rather than truth. And once it becomes history, it loses authority. This doesn't mean that the voice will disappear overnight, but it changes tone. It becomes less absolute, less threatening, less fused with who you believe you are. If this topic feels familiar, this is exactly the kind of work we explore more deeply inside my introductory course, Anatomy of the Soul, the inner structure. In that process, we work with embodied patterns, memory, the structures that shape identity, so that insight becomes lived experience. You can find the course details in the description. And if you want to explore this gradually, you can join my newsletter, Soul Psychology, where I share my thoughts, reflections, exercise, and you can find also the link in the description. This is Anatomy of the Soul, and in the next episode, we will explore how comparison forms and why measuring yourself against others often begins long before adulthood.